when I hear the verbal cues of like ways that I could improve the situation I find myself in, then it helps spawn other productive, helpful thoughts. As opposed, if I keep them all inside, then I can get them lost in the negative quagmire that is my chaotic brain. So, yeah, problem solving out loud really does help. Hi, I'm Kate, and welcome to Always Tuck and Roll. We discuss life, the universe, autism, and pretty much everything else because it's best to just follow what thoughts pop up in my head these days and see where we go with it all. The tuck and roll of it all. So, today I thought it would be fun to talk about talking to yourself. We all do it. We all do it for a variety of different reasons. I've actually found this extremely informative. But I know that I talk out loud all the time. And I find it fascinating that technically right now I'm talking to myself, but the second I've posted this online, it no longer becomes just talking to myself. Semantics, right? Let's not get lost in them too far, but that was a thought that is just kind of amusing me at this point in time. But so, I was looking at the different facets as, everyone has an opinion about it. It's not generally a bad thing, but we all do it. But I kind of began to wonder, why we do it and in what ways. Because I know that I can be all over the map with it. I tend to, calm myself down, remind myself that, I'm safe, I'm alive, I know how to do this. Or there's just so much noise in my head, I need to say stuff out loud so that I can focus on that thought as opposed to all of the other thoughts that are in my head. Because there's so much chaos, plus 10 songs playing on my mental jukebox that I don't get to pick and they all just play at once. So, there's a lot of noise in here. I wish I had an aux out so everyone could just hear the chaos, because except for the days where it's just screaming. We're having a more music-y day, so it's just a lot of noise and chaos, but we're gonna go with it. And a few movie clips. Do you get movie clips stuck in your head? Because I definitely do. Anyway, talking to yourself. So on verywellmind.com, I found this article entitled, "Why Do You Talk to Yourself?" And of all the ones that I read, I really liked the way this one was broken down. So it's by Kendra Cherry, Masters of Education, updated about 18 months ago on September 25th, 2023. So, people talk to themselves for various reasons, including problem-solving, reasoning, planning, motivation, and attention. Self-talk is common, and experts believe in talking to yourself out loud can help you process your thoughts in a healthy, productive way. Self-talk can also be related to problems like stress, anxiety, or trauma. If you're experiencing other symptoms like difficulty sleeping or feelings of intense sadness, it's best to see a mental health care professional. It's normal to talk to yourself. While there are times it might pose problems or be a sign of mental health conditions, in most cases, you can go right ahead and talk to yourself without it being cause for worry. And I never looked at it as a cause for worry. It was more just one of those mornings you wake up, why do we do what we do? I know that I frequently, just start researching because I'm like, well, that's weird. Why am I doing that? Who else does that? So, welcome to the landing process of that whole thought adventure today. So, why do people talk to themselves? Most people have an inner monologue, but many people also engage in external self-talk. Almost everyone talks out loud to themselves at least occasionally, but some do it more often than others. I do it all the time. While external self-talk is relatively common, there has not been a great deal of research into why some people talk to themselves out loud and others don't. A 2019 article published in the journal Frontiers in Psychology explored a couple of different explanations. They have just 2 suggestions listed in this section right here. So social isolation is the first one. One theory suggests that People who spend more time alone may be more likely to talk to themselves because they have fewer interactions with others, and their self-talk may serve as some form of social communication. I'm alone a lot, and yeah, I talk freely to myself all the time. It's not about socializing for me. It's literally just like that's how I think sometimes. And when I know that there's no one around to be annoyed by me, then yeah, I'm not going to hold back and I'm just going to say my thoughts out loud and we're going to process in real time. Thanks for watching. There's a fair amount of research for supporting this theory. Studies have shown that adults who are an only child are more likely to engage in external self-talk. I have 2 younger siblings, so that's not why I do it. I do it because I need to. Another study found that people who are lonely and have a strong need to belong are also more likely to talk to themselves. Self-talk in this case serves to fill a need that isn't being met by limited or unsatisfactory social relationships. I don't get lonely. That's not to say I don't miss certain people, but I don't generally get lonely. I'm the type to be alone in a crowd, so yeah, no, I don't, there's so much happening in my head. I don't get bored and I don't get lonely. So other than isolation, the next thing was cognitive disruption. So this theory suggests that people may talk to themselves out loud due to the cognitively disruptive events that are often brought on by stress or other similar events. For example, feelings of anxiety or obsessive-compulsive tendencies can create cognitive disruptions linked to increases in self-talk. If I am in a stressful situation, I will talk myself through it. And in fact, usually me talking myself through something is a hell of a lot more helpful than other people helping me. Other people's external help is probably more detrimental than I can even express, and I've got to figure that out at some point in time, probably. So types of self-talk. There are a few different types of ways that you might talk to yourself. Self-talk tends to be either positive or negative, but can also differ in terms of its intended purpose. I feel like I'm more neutral than positive or negative, but I don't know. So, positive and negative self-talk. Talking to yourself in a positive way may involve delivering self-affirmations or statements designed to help you stay motivated and inspired. Talking to yourself in a negative way often centers on stalemates that are self-critical or blaming. Sounds like when I'm hiking. Just a little further, you got this. Why would you do this? This sucks. I don't do uphill very well. Instructional self-talk. This form of self-directed speech is centered on talking through the steps that you will need to follow in order to solve a problem or perform a task. That is me to a T. I am constantly like, all right, let's focus on this step, this step, this step, because I come up with a process for everything I have to do, so that way, I can just follow the steps so that I'm not getting chaotically overstimulated trying to solve a problem all the time, especially if it's one I've already solved. Just remember the steps. Create a system. I want to say it's not that hard. It's not hard for me, but that's how my brain is wired. It's what is the way to make this make the most sense and be efficient about it. And so I'm very much instructional self-talk. The last type of self-talk listed here is motivational self-talk. This type of speech is focused on providing encouragement to perform a task. For example, you might congratulate yourself for your efforts or remind yourself that you're capable of succeeding. And yeah, I do that from time to time, but usually it's more to keep myself calm so that I don't freak out, because I am prone to panic attacks, I am prone to anxiety attacks, and I can lose the ability to be a hyper-rational person very, very quickly if I let myself panic. So if I'm constantly reminding myself of what I can do and how to do it, then yeah, I got this. So the benefits of talking to yourself. So reflection. Talking to yourself can be a useful way to gain some distance from your own experiences. It allows you to reflect on things that are happening in your life. By providing you some distance, it can be a great way to see things more objectively. It can minimize the immediate emotion and knee-jerk feelings you might have in the heat of the moment so that you can see things in a clearer, more rational way. And that's definitely good. It's if you can take a pause and take a step back and look at it from a whole and talk yourself through what, like, the whole situation start to finish, like to restart to where you are, it is so much easier to understand how you got there and, more importantly, how to get out of where you're stuck. And I know that I will get lost in the how I got there in the first place, but really sometimes, especially if it's like a real emergency, I can snap out and go like, all right, we'll figure out why later, but the solution is, and go with it there. Next step on this list is motivation. Talking to yourself can also be motivating. Consider the times you've hyped yourself up to face a challenge by telling yourself, I can do this, or you've got this. Such thoughts can be useful when you keep them inside, but externalizing such ideas can often be more motivating. One study in athletes found that self-talk not only helped them perform better, but it also seemed to related to how much fun they had playing the game. And that's totally true. So like skiing, especially like I definitely have always talked to myself while skiing, like, oh, go over here, do this, oh, let's go over here, no, or why would you try that, or ooh, I want to be over here. Keep your, like, keep your posture better, you know better than that. Like, there's a lot of, me self-correcting, both mentally and verbally. But the end of the day, when the mountain is skied off, and here on the ice coast you have just like piles of powder and ice, and just sheer like metal, like ice in between every pile, and my legs are tapped and they don't want to play anymore, and I'm feeling weak everywhere, and the light's flat so it's even harder to read the terrain. Yeah, I'll talk to myself and be like, all right, now we go to this pile, let's go to that pile. And honestly, having done that my whole life helped me when I was teaching skiing to small children, because I could hype them up the same way I would hype myself up. Like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go there. Knees to the trees, there. Like if you're really scared or something, or just really tired and don't want to be there anymore. I'd also do it for field hockey, like, you just have to make it down the next 50 yards so you can get to the end. It's fine. Like, I hate running. I was a right-ender and a right wing, so too much running for a 4'11" flat-footed asthmatic. But our best runner was the sweep. We should have swapped positions. Not that, but see, her stick save was better. She's a better player than I was. Varsity level bench warmer right here. Anyway, next up after that was better memory. So if you've ever talked to yourself as you roam the aisles of a grocery store, don't fret. Research has shown it might actually help you remember the items on your list. So will bringing the list, but occasionally I do forget the list. We all do it. We're all human. In one older study, participants had to search for items in a store without saying anything. During the second phase of the experiment, the participants were told to repeat the names of the items they were looking for as they searched. The results showed that those who talked to themselves found it easier to find what they were looking for. I totally believe that, because it's kind of like, when you walk through a door and you forget everything you were thinking about, and then you're like, don't even know why you're in a room, because that happens a lot in this apartment. And not just because of the unmedicated ADHD that's running rampant around here. It's just because doorways have that effect on people. And I think aisles work the same way too. And if you're constantly saying what it is you're looking for, your short-term memory doesn't have time to drop the ball and just like etch-a-sketch yourself out of, shake the etch-a-sketch out and just disappear everything. But yeah, so totally makes sense. And the last benefit here they have is problem solving, which totally. Talking to yourself can also be a way to work through problems you might be facing. This tactic, known as self-explaining, can help people monitor their progress and improve their performance as they work through a problem. Spending a few moments talking to yourself can give you the time you need to really focus and reflect on the problem of your options. And all of your options. And totally, that is how I most primarily talk out loud, especially when I'm stressed out, is what can be done. Because if I'm constantly thinking of, when I hear the verbal cues of like ways that I could improve the situation I find myself in, then it helps spawn other productive, helpful thoughts. As opposed, if I keep them all inside, then I can get them lost in the negative quagmire that is my chaotic brain. So, yeah, problem solving out loud really does help me anyway. So, getting the most out of self-talk. Guess we're not just talking for talking's sake. Keep it positive. Negative self-talk, whether it's in your mind or out loud, can have a seriously detrimental impact on your well-being. If you tend to dwell on or ruminate on negativity, finding ways to reframe your words can be beneficial. This doesn't mean saying things that are overly positive or unrealistic. For example, you don't want to replace a negative statement such as, "I'm terrible at this," with, "I'm the best at this." Instead, focus on making positive but realistic statements that foster a more optimistic mindset. For example, you might say, "This is hard, but you're learning. You're getting better every day." And I am not great at positivity, mostly because I authentically am not that positive a person. I am a pragmatic person. Which, unfortunately, pragmatism and positivity rarely get to hold hands and frolic through the fields. It is what it is. But they're absolutely right that realistic statements can help keep that more optimistic mindset going. Because, like, yeah, this is hard, but you're learning. Hi, that was called my 20s. And you know what, my 30s too. But I took all of the lessons from my 20s, and the 30s were less chaotic and way fewer near-death experiences, so I'm going to chalk that up to a win. Ask questions. Asking yourself questions about what you have learned or what something means can be a powerful tool for improving memory, because you are essentially learning something and then teaching it to yourself. It helps reinforce the information and cement it in a long-term memory more effectively. For sure, this is honestly how I do a lot of the things. Tune into what you're saying. Talking to yourself is most beneficial when you actually pay attention and listen to what you're saying. No way. No way. I mean, obviously. It makes sense, right? Well, you might sometimes simply narrate what's happening in a more stream of consciousness manner without really paying attention to the content of your words. Listening and thinking about your self-talk can be a helpful way to gain greater self-awareness. And that is true. Saying things out loud, and you're like, when you say something like, "That sounded ridiculous. What does that even mean?" Do that with your writing. If something doesn't make sense that you just wrote down, say it out loud, and you'll be able to start pulling it apart to make it make sense verbally. Using the second or third person. Instead of talking to yourself in the first person, try switching to a second, so you, or a third person, she, he, they perspective. That's right, we're using pronouns. Deal with it. 'Cause they're a part of language. In one study, researchers found that when people talked to themselves in the third person, they were able to better regulate their own emotions. This can be particularly helpful if you're dealing with difficult or stressful feelings. Using the third person can help you get distance from those feelings, which can then help you evaluate them more objectively, almost as if you were observing someone's thoughts rather than your own. So I tend to already think this way pretty regularly anyway, just because I had a really good critical thinking background growing up. Because it was always, if you're like, oh, he hit me. Well, why? What did you do to him? And if you did something wrong, well, why did you think that that was okay? What would you want that done to you? Like a lot more questions than answers. My parents were, I don't know if they were intentionally teaching us critical thinking, but there was a lot of critical thinking there, and I am so grateful for it. So the next section here is how to control it. Because, it's annoying to everyone that isn't you if you are not alone while you're doing it. So, there's usually nothing wrong with talking to yourself, but that doesn't mean there aren't times when you want to keep your thoughts to yourself instead of verbalizing them. For example, others might find your self-talk disruptive, particularly if you are sharing a workspace with other people. Cubicle says, what? Worked in a cubicle, well, I've had 2 cubicles at the same job, my last job. Yeah. Processing out loud, frowned upon. Very, very frowned upon in a cubicle. It made doing my job very, very hard. Much harder than it should have been, and my job was already extremely complicated. They have some tips here. So, their first tip here is talk to other people. If you talk to yourself in order to think through a problem or motivate yourself, you might find it helpful to talk to those around you instead. You might pose questions or ask if they want to offer feedback on your ideas. That's great. If you work in an environment where conversation is encouraged. That is not often the case. I have definitely worked in environments where they would say, oh yeah, definitely, you should just reach out and ask them. But then the second you went and asked a person that, then you get, why are you talking to people? Why aren't you at your desk? You could there's no pleasing people. Just saying. The second tip here is distract yourself. Finding other ways to stay occupied can minimize your desire to talk out loud. For example, you might chew some gum, sip some water, or suck on a mint or a piece of hard candy. All of those things are going to piss off the people in your surrounding cubes. Ask me how I know. I mean, I've heard people sipping water annoyingly loud. I'm a loud gum chewer. My mom constantly told me growing up that I chewed like a cow. But I don't generate a lot of saliva on my own, so I'm constantly drinking water and chewing gum because I don't know if you can hear it, but I don't have any saliva in my mouth at all right now. And that's not just because I've been talking, it's because I'm alive. The third thing here is to write it down. Journaling can be a helpful practice that may help you process emotions, explore solutions, and even relieve symptoms of stress. And that is entirely true. That is a great way to end the day. I do a mood journal. I use the Dailyo app to track different aspects of how I'm feeling, what I did, but also to journal what I did. It's a great app for that. But I can't do that in the middle of the day. Journaling in the middle of work would not have solved my problems. But I think my need to process out loud might be a little bit more compulsive, but it also could be because I'm neurodivergent, and this article is just about the concept of talking to yourself. It's not about neurodivergence in any way, shape, or form. Moving on. So, the next section, when to be concerned. Because, some self-talk is problematic. I mean, really. So, self-talk isn't always a positive force. If you're engaging in negative self-talk, it can take a toll on your confidence, self-esteem, and mental well-being. Sometimes you might find yourself engaging in self-talk centered on rumination or continuously talking about the same sad, negative thoughts. I mean, my brain just focuses on those. Those are the strongest memories, but I'm just a morbid, morose person. It's not usually that I am sad or negative per se, though I am kind of negative. I'm working on positivity, but I don't believe in lying about being happy or positive. Deal with it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and that you got a little something out of this. I know that I got a lot and not just from my like numerous rabbit holes that I fell down. And when all else fails, just don't forget to just tuck and roll. You'll land somewhere. This is where we landed today. Varsity level bench warmer right here.